Space was quiet that night. Too quiet. Captain Daniel Hayes stood at the wide observation window of the USS Vigilant, a deep space defense cruiser stationed in high orbit above Titan. The giant moon hung below, cloaked in its swirling orange haze, its methane seas glinting faintly in Saturn's reflected light. Normally, it was a sight Daniel found calming. Tonight, it felt more like a gravestone. Around him, the Vigilant's bridge was hushed, every crew member glued to their stations as sensor sweeps rolled across the outer system. The hum of the reactor and the soft ping of radar pulses were the only sounds, save for the occasional cough or the muted shuffle of boots on deck plating. Nothing. No new signals. No unusual heat blooms. No engine wakes. But Daniel could feel it, something was out there. "Status report," he said finally, his voice steady but low. "Outer perimeter sensors clean," replied Lieutenant Sarah McConnell, her eyes darting over holographic readouts. "No new contacts in the last hour. Kuiper Belt stations are reporting nominal traffic." Nominal. Right. Daniel folded his hands behind his back and stared out at the stars again. The galaxy seemed to be holding its breath. He wasn't the only one who felt it. Commander Elena Brooks, his second in command, approached with a quiet, measured step. Her dark hair was tied back tight, her expression a mask of professionalism, but Daniel saw the tension in her shoulders. "You're thinking about them again," she said softly, stopping at his side. Daniel didn't have to ask who them meant. Everyone knew. The Battlefleet. A century and a half ago, during humanity's last great war, they had been Earth's sword, hundreds of capital ships, carriers, and escorts, the pride of the Terran Alliance Navy. Then, in the final days of that war, they had been sent on a last-ditch counteroffensive into deep space. And they had never come back. Official records called it the Lost Expeditionary Strike Force, presumed destroyed beyond the rim. But history had twisted it into something else, a myth, a legend. Parents told their children bedtime stories about the Battlefleet sleeping somewhere in the dark, waiting to return when Earth was in danger again. Fairy tales for recruits, some officers called them. Something to make the cadets believe we're invincible. Daniel had believed it once. But now Earth might need those fairy tales to be true. The Vigilant had been on high alert for 3 weeks, ever since the first deep space listening post in the Oort cloud had gone dark without warning. The official report blamed a meteor strike. The unofficial whispers blamed something far worse. Alien raiders. And not just raiders, something organized. Something big. "Captain." Sarah's voice cut through the tense silence, sharp enough to make everyone on the bridge glance her way. Picking up a gravitic fluctuation near the belt, Sector 17. Daniel's stomach tightened. "Show me." The main display flared to life, filling the bridge with a star chart. A single point pulsed in angry red, flaring and fading in irregular intervals. "That's massive," Sarah said, her voice thin. "Way too much energy for a comet impact." And, she hesitated, her fingers flying across the console. "Sir, we just lost telemetry from Kuiper Station 9. It's gone." A cold silence followed. Elena stepped closer to the display, her jaw tightening. "That's our early warning post for inbound traffic. We're blind past the belt now." Daniel didn't wait. "Sound General Quarters. Bring shields to standby. Get Fleet Command on Priority Omega Channel. I want the whole SolNet awake for this." The bridge came alive with motion. Alarms whooped, crew members scrambled to battle stations, and the deep thrum of the Vigilance shield generators began to build underfoot. But the worst was yet to come. Multiple contacts. Sarah shouted suddenly. They're just appearing out of dark space. 6, no, 7 of them. Sir, they're big." The main screen shifted, and the bridge fell utterly silent. Colossal shapes slid into view, black and jagged, their hulls bristling with weapons that caught the light of distant Sol like the teeth of some deep ocean predator. No human ship looked like that. Daniel felt a cold knot settle in his chest. "Configuration?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Sarah swallowed. No match in Terran databases. No match in any databases. Which meant one thing. They were here. Whoever they were. The alien fleet moved with terrifying precision, forming a wall across the outer system. For a moment they were still, like hunters scenting prey. Then one of the ships turned, and a spear of light lanced through the void. Pluto's defense outpost, small, remote, but manned, flared once and disintegrated into a scatter of burning fragments. The first shot of the war. On the bridge, no one breathed. "Transmit all data to Fleet Command," Daniel ordered, his voice steady despite the ice in his veins. "Then plot intercept course. We're the first line, they don't get past us." "Yes, sir." Elena snapped. The Vigilance engines rumbled to life, swinging the ship onto a collision vector. Around them, other defense cruisers began to wake from their patrol orbits, moving to form a defensive line. It wasn't enough. Daniel knew it. The alien ships dwarfed even Earth's heaviest dreadnoughts, and if they had already cracked a listening post and a station, then Sol's defenses would be nothing but speed bumps. Still, they had to try. As the Vigilant accelerated into the dark, Daniel let his gaze linger on the alien fleet filling the screen. His crew was tense, whispering prayers or muttering curses, but he stood still, cold, focused. Somewhere, in the back of his mind, an old Academy story echoed, "When the night is darkest, the Battlefleet will return." He had never put much stock in it before. But as the stars stretched into thin lines and the Vigilant plunged toward the approaching enemy, Daniel Hayes found himself whispering into the silence. Time to find out if the legends were true. And for the first time in a century and a half, humanity braced itself for war. The first week was a slaughter. The Sarin did not negotiate, did not pause, did not even acknowledge human hails. They moved like a tidal wave sweeping across the system, striking outposts with surgical precision. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the command deck of the Vigilant, staring at the latest battle report as the ship coasted in high orbit above Europa. The icy moon reflected pale light through the bridge's viewports, but there was nothing peaceful about the scene inside. The air smelled faintly of ozone from overworked systems, and a tense quiet lay over the crew as if everyone were holding their breath. "Ceres Station is gone," Commander Elena Brooks said, her voice hoarse as she read from the tactical feed. "They didn't even slow down. Our defense ships fought for 3 minutes before being annihilated. Surviving personnel were captured." Daniel's jaw tightened. Another red icon blinked out on the sector display. Another colony lost. Another set of names that would never make it home. How long before they reach Mars? Daniel asked quietly. Sarah McConnell, hunched over the sensor station, didn't look up. Her voice was brittle with exhaustion. "Best estimate, 6 days, if they keep their current advance rate. Maybe less if they jump ahead again. 6 days. Not nearly enough time to reinforce shipyards or evacuate the civilians." Elena swore under her breath and slammed her datapad down on the console. "We can't keep trading ground like this. We lose Mars, we lose half our ship production capacity, and then Earth is next." Daniel didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the tactical holo, watching the alien icons creep inward. There was something almost deliberate about the way they were moving, too measured, too precise. "They're not advancing at full burn," he murmured finally. Elena frowned. "What are you saying?" "They're hurting us," Daniel said. "Look at the pattern. They're leaving just enough time for us to rally defenses before they hit the next target." Sarah turned to glance at him, pale. "You think they want us concentrated somewhere?" Daniel didn't answer. The thought chilled him. For hours, the Vigilant drifted in uneasy silence, its crew working frantically to update firing solutions, coordinate fleet data, and prepare for what everyone knew was coming. In the mess hall, Marines sat hunched over cold rations, their faces grim. On the engineering deck, Chief Ortiz barked orders to keep the reactor running at overdrive readiness. That night, when most of the ship had gone quiet, Daniel found himself alone again on the observation deck. The stars stretched out before him like scattered diamonds, distant and indifferent to the blood being spilled beneath them. He remembered the stories. As a boy, he'd sat on his grandfather's porch, listening to the old man speak about the Battlefleet, the ghost armada that had vanished into deep space and was said to return only when humanity was truly threatened. Daniel had dismissed it as myth, a bedtime story to make the dark seem less frightening. Now, staring into that dark, he found himself wishing the story was true. A soft chime broke the silence. "Captain?" Sarah's voice came through the intercom, breathless. "You need to see this." Daniel turned and strode back to the bridge. The moment he stepped through the hatch, he knew something was wrong. The air was electric, charged with a kind of quiet terror. Sarah was standing over the sensor console, her hands white-knuckled on the edge. "What is it?" Daniel demanded. "Something just happened out there," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sector 9 lit up like a supernova, then went completely blank. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Blank?" "As in no data," Sarah said. "All sensors in that region are dead. It's like space itself is folding in on itself." Before Daniel could reply, the deck beneath their feet vibrated, not from weapons fire, but from something deeper, something stranger. The stars outside seemed to ripple as if seen through water. Then the sensors began to scream. Mass signatures, multiple, coming out of dark space. Sarah shouted, fighting to keep her voice steady. "They're huge, capital ship size, no, bigger. Hundreds of them." The main display flickered, and suddenly the bridge was bathed in pale light. And there they were. Silhouettes began to resolve out of the distortion, massive ships, their hulls sleek and dark, bearing the unmistakable geometry of human design, but older, heavier, built for a kind of war no one had fought in centuries. Carriers the size of cities. Siege cruisers bristling with gun batteries. Escort destroyers moving in perfect formation. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. This can't be real," Elena whispered. The comm crackled to life. "Attention all Terran defense units. This is Admiral Marcus Vance of the United Terran Battlefleet. You are ordered to disengage and hold position. We are assuming operational control of this conflict." The voice was calm, steady, and impossibly familiar. Everyone on the bridge froze. Admiral Marcus Vance had been dead for 172 years. There were statues of him in the Naval Academy's Hall of Heroes. His name was etched on the memorial wall in Geneva. But there was no mistaking that voice. Daniel swallowed hard. "Open channel," he said. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the Vigilant," he said into the calm. "Admiral, is this real?" A pause. Then the voice again, warm, resolute, carrying the weight of history. "Very real, Captain. We went where no one could follow. We built what no one could imagine. And now we have come back, because Earth is not ready to fall." The bridge was silent, every crew member staring at the display as the impossible fleet took up formation. For the first time since the war had begun, Daniel felt the cold knot in his chest loosen. Humanity was not alone anymore. And the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Sarin never saw it coming. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, heart pounding as the impossible armada took its place among the stars. The returning Battlefleet moved with mechanical precision, hundreds of warships sliding into formation like pieces of an ancient, perfect machine. Their hulls gleamed obsidian black, every surface bristling with weaponry that no Terran database could even identify. "Sir," Sarah whispered, unable to look away from the tactical display. "We're reading over 200 capital-class vessels. Their power output is off the charts. I've never seen anything like this." Daniel didn't answer. For the first time in weeks, he felt something that wasn't dread. He felt hope. The comms flared again. "All Terran ships, this is Admiral Marcus Vance. Form on my flagship, the Eternal Resolve. Engage when ordered. Today, we drive them from Sol." A murmur rippled across the bridge crew. No one argued. The Vigilant swung into formation, taking its place along the left flank of the resurrected fleet. Ahead of them, the alien dreadnoughts shifted uneasily. For the first time since the invasion began, they were no longer the hunters. They were prey. multiple Sarin vessels powering weapons, Sarah reported. They're targeting the Battlefleet.
Let them, Daniel said, his voice calm as he watched the icons on the holodisplay close the distance. Then, with a suddenness that took Daniel's breath away, the Battlefleet opened fire. Blinding streaks of railgun slugs tore through the void, crossing millions of kilometers in seconds.
Experimental beam weapons, sleek, white lances of energy, stabbed into the alien formation. The first Sarin dreadnought detonated before it even had time to raise full shields, its black hull erupting in a silent, catastrophic bloom of flame. Direct hit. Elena shouted, her voice almost disbelieving.
We've never seen weapons punch through Sarin shields like that.
That's because they've never fought ships built for total war, Daniel replied. The Vigilant joined the assault, its guns screaming as they hurled tungsten death into the fray.
All around, humanity's ghost fleet moved like an avenging storm, their formation precise, disciplined, relentless. The Sarin fought back, of course.
Their dreadnoughts spat beams of green plasma that carved through space like scythes. 2 human escorts went up in silent blossoms of light, torn apart in seconds, but the formation didn't break. Admiral Vance's voice cut across comms, steady as a metronome. Maintain pressure. Focus fire on their command ship.
Break their coordination, and the rest will scatter.
Target locked, Sarah said. Feeding firing solution to fleet net.
Across the formation, a dozen heavy cruisers pivoted as one, their massive spinal cannons charging. Then they fired an impossible convergence of power that struck the alien command ship dead center. The dreadnought's shields flared, failed, and then its hull folded in on itself, imploding under its own gravitational mass before bursting apart. Cheers erupted across the Vigilance bridge.
They're retreating, Elena cried. I repeat, the Sarin are breaking formation.
Sure enough, the remaining alien ships began to scatter, their precise movements collapsing into a panicked rout. But Vance was not about to let them escape.
All units, pursue.
We drive them past Neptune.
We end this tonight.
The chase burned across the system. Through the asteroid belt, past the orbits of Uranus and Neptune, the fleeing Sarin ships tried to regroup, but the Battlefleet was relentless. Where modern Terran ships would have stopped to rearm or repair, these ships pressed forward without hesitation, their weapons cycling in perfect rhythm. The Vigilant followed in their wake, its crew fighting exhaustion and adrenaline as battle after battle lit up the dark. The final clash came just beyond the Kuiper belt, where the remaining Sarin vessels formed a desperate defensive wall.
Captain, Sarah said, her voice tight. We've got them cornered.
Daniel stared at the screen. This was it, the end of the invasion, one way or another. Bring us in close, he ordered.
Let's finish this.
The last battle was chaos and fire. Alien missiles streaked past, detonating against the Vigilance shields and shaking the hull so hard Daniel felt it in his bones. Crew members were thrown from their stations, klaxons screamed, and for a moment it seemed like they might not survive. Then the Eternal Resolve cut through the melee, its forward batteries unleashing a final, shattering volley that tore the last enemy ship apart.
And just like that, silence. No more hostile contacts. No more red icons on the display. The war, at least here in Seoul, was over. For a long moment, no one on the bridge spoke. Then Sarah let out a shaky laugh. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it.
Around the ship, cheers erupted. Marines pounded bulkheads.
Engineers shouted in triumph. On every Terran frequency, voices rose in celebration. But Daniel was silent, staring out at the wreckage drifting in the black.
They had won, yes, but this was just the beginning. Later, as the Vigilant docked with the Eternal Resolve, Daniel found himself standing face to face with Admiral Vance in the flagship's vast, cathedral-like command deck. The Admiral was older now, silver streaking his hair, his uniform worn but immaculate.
His presence radiated the kind of calm authority Daniel had only ever read about.
You came back, Daniel said quietly. Vance's eyes met his, and for a moment Daniel felt as if he were standing before the very embodiment of humanity's will. We went beyond the rim, Vance said simply. We built in secret, trained in silence, waited for the day the stars would call us back.
And when we heard that call, Captain Hayes, we came running. Daniel glanced out at the stars. What happens now? Now. A faint, almost dangerous smile touched Vance's lips. Now we take the fight to them. The Sarin thought humanity was weak. They forgot what we are. He turned to face the fleet beyond the viewport, his voice rising. We are the species that comes back from the dark. And as the resurrected Battlefleet prepared to jump beyond Sol once more, Daniel felt a shiver of pride run through him. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was not finished. And this time, they would make sure no one forgot.